we are so happy that you are here with us. This is your virtual brown bag on mental health and how mental health can be affected by your lack of a work life balance. So, we have many speakers and people on today who will discuss that. So, grab your lunch. Okay, I have a glass of water, but that's good for us, right? So, grab your lunch and let's get started. I just wanted to remind you that the mission of NNOA is to enhance the sea service operational readiness by supporting recruiting, professional development, and retention in an effort to achieve a diverse officer corps that reflects the demographics of our nation. So today you are witnessing the professional development piece of our mission. At this time, I'm going to introduce Lieutenant Commander Camille Williams. Chaplain Williams is our National Naval Officers Association chaplain. Now, let me just say one word about her: spiritual. That's what you get when you get Chaplain Williams. When she gives us a prayer, she gives us a scripture, she gives us a prayer, and then we have something to think about and think about as we do our meetings or whatever is going on. So, Chaplain Williams, thank you so much for putting this together, because she was the one that reminded me that this is Mental Health Month, and we do really need to be aware of what's going on with our sailors, Marines, and Coast Guard persons in mental health. So, Chaplain Williams, if you could unmute yourself, we're going to turn it over to you.
Greetings of the day, everybody. Thank you so much, Captain McAdams, and everybody for joining us. We know you have plenty of things to do, and we don't want to monopolize your time. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I want to thank our wonderful panelists for joining us today. And I'm going to briefly go over their bios, and then we're going to get this discussion started. Now we're going to start with Captain Warren Judge. He is celebrating his anniversary with his wife, so he may be logging in a little bit late. But we'll be on the lookout for him. But I'm going to go ahead and read his bio. Captain Warren D. Judge is commanding officer of Coast Guard Training Center, Cape May, New Jersey, and he's been there since July of 2022. He is a native of Tampa, Florida, and he's married to Angela, my Spelman sister, and he has 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren. He served as ESD chief in Portsmouth, Virginia for the Command, Control, Communications, Computer, Cyber, and Intelligence Service Center. He has also served as Career Management Branch Chief for the Office of Personnel Management. From 2009 to 2012, he served as a Presidential Response Officer Communications, led for President Barack Obama at the White House Communications Agency as the only Coast Guardsman. He completed his bachelor's degree in computer science at Elizabeth City State University, North Carolina in 1997. He earned his master's degree in computer science from Howard University in 2004 and a second master's degree in system quality management from National Graduate School 2007. Our next panelist is Chaplain Robert W. Peters III, and also a mentor of mine. Commander Robert W. Peters III is a native of Boston, Massachusetts. He is an ordained minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Commander Peters earned undergraduate degrees in commercial art illustration from Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama, and communication graphics from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. He received a Master of Divinity from Andrews Theological Seminary in Berrien Springs, Michigan. He earned a Master's of Arts in National Security and Strategic Studies from Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. He became a Doctor of Strategic Leadership from Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. In March of 1992, Commander Peters joined the United States Marine Corps, and over the next 8 years, he became a naval aviator. He was a helicopter pilot with Marine Medium Helicopter Squadron 162. In August of 2000, Commander Peters joined the Navy to become a chaplain. Since he has served as command chaplain with Command Carrier Air Wing 8, 3rd Recruit Training Battalion, Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego, 1st Battalion, 1st Marine, and 1st Marine Division Headquarters Battalion Chaplain, Camp Pendleton, California. Our next panelist is Lieutenant Angelica M. Perkins, who is a native of Selma, Alabama, but grew up in the DeKalb County school system, just like me. She's commissioned from Tuskegee University in 2016 after earning a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. Lieutenant Perkins began her career as a surface warfare officer, where she served as Assistant Damage Control Assistant and Damage Control Division Officer on board USS George H.W. Bush in Norfolk, Virginia. After earning the surface warfare qualification, Lieutenant Perkins reported to Fleet Weather Center Norfolk on temporary duty orders for 6 months, earning Command Duty Officer qualification, in addition to multiple Forecast Duty Officer qualifications covering the Arctic, Atlantic, and Mediterranean regions. In 2018, Lieutenant Perkins lateral transferred to Naval Oceanography, reporting to Commander, Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command in Stennis Space Center, Mississippi. She served as the U.S. 2nd and 6th Fleet Desk Lead and Senior Watch Officer. Additionally, she earned the Battle Watch Captain and Information Warfare Officer qualifications. Lieutenant Perkins currently serves as at the Office of the Chief of Naval Operations as the Deputy Executive Assistant to the Oceanographer of the Navy. And lastly, one of NNOA's very own, Captain Lakira N. Farms. Please tell me I pronounced that right. She is from Gary, Indiana, and achieved her Bachelor's of Science in Applied Health Science from Indiana University in spring of 2011. Her focus of study was human development and family studies with minors in chemistry and medical science. Captain Farms enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve in August 2006. Upon graduating from boot camp, Captain Farms reported to Detachment Communications Company, Headquarters Battalion, 4th Marine Division in Indianapolis, Indiana, and served 6 years as a 0612 field wireman. In May 2008, Captain Farms attended Officer Candidate School as a member of the Platoon Leaders Class Combined and was commissioned in April 2012. In January 2013, she reported to the basic school where she was selected to attend the Basic Communication Officers course in Quantico, Virginia. Was my microphone muted that whole time? Are you kidding me? My microphone was muted that whole time. I sat here and read that. See, this is the problem with this thing being on. Well, now that I've wasted all of that time.
Well, we could hear all the bio, so that was good.
Okay, like I don't know how it did that. Well,
It
mistakes
happened.
happen. We're gonna keep it rolling. I don't even know how that happened, but we're just gonna keep it rolling. I want to start this discussion off. We wanted to approach mental health. We know these are the signs and symptoms and ways to get help, but I wanted to approach this discussion from a more organic conversation about what does this really look like in the fleet. So I'd like to start off with each of you taking some time to share about one difficult time in your career and what you did to get through it. We're going to start with Commander Peters.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, greetings, wherever you find yourselves. I'm Chaplain Robert Peters, and due to the time being short, I will stick to the 3-minute limit of just touching on one or two difficult times as a chaplain that I've experienced in the military. I will say the most difficult times as a chaplain revolve around supporting parents, military parents, when they have to bury their children, and or newlyweds in the armed services who have to bury their spouse, and caring for commands in the aftermath of a self-inflicted death. Those situations take a toll on a person's spiritual readiness, emotional well-being, mental health, and my own in ways like very few other situations can and have. Probably the most difficult one would have been a young couple that I had worked with, counseled in the military, and shortly after their marriage and their plans to live together, the wife was met by an untimely auto accident that took her life. Having to work with her parents through that process, and her spouse, who was Marine, through that process, took a huge toll on myself and the command, because they were both beloved by everyone. And that same sort of thing happens when we deal with the aftermath of a suicide-related incident that takes place in the command. So with that, I will yield back the time to the floor to my other esteemed colleagues, and I'll wait for questions.
Thank you, Chaplain Peters. Lieutenant Perkins, please share with us.
Greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Perkins, happy to be here today. I'll try to keep mine short as well. Initially, when I started to think about a difficult time in my career thus far, my first mind immediately went to deployment, right? Fresh out of college, first deployment, being away from home, for 7 months, that was tough. But as I explored a little bit further, I thought about something that presented a little bit of a different challenge and challenged me holistically, if you will. And that was more of a period in time. And that was when I was stationed at Stennis Space Center in Mississippi during the peak of COVID, and during a time where, as a nation, there was just a lot of things going on civilly, right? We talk about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. And I look at that time period where I'm just kind of like, most of the things that you do to kind of keep yourself grounded, that was kind of taken away from us. I'm naturally an extrovert. I couldn't socialize. You go to church and you get that sort of spiritual nourishment, that was taken away. You're serving at a command. You report to this command and you think that your mission is going to be one thing, but due to COVID, that looks like something completely different. You're separated from your families. You're having deaths in the families. It was just a lot going on at one time. And it was just a very rocky environment for me. So that was, I would say that was the most difficult time for me during my career thus far. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Captain Farms, please share with us.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on your time zone. So a difficult time for me, I would say the thing that immediately comes to mind, and it's something I'm very open with my Marines peers leadership about, is having the experience being passed for promotion. I think it's something that happens to a lot of service members, but it's rarely talked about because everybody kind of wants to keep it hush. They don't like to talk about the times when things in their career didn't go as well as much as they talk about the successes. So that was something that was very stressful on me, especially dealing with that, being someone who, a lot of people have told me like they believe I'm a high performing officer and I pour a lot into Marines, but to experience something like that and to continue to stay in the fight and to stay effective at work was just a new level of stress that I hadn't dealt with before. And so during that time, I know I just had to be very mindful or become very mindful of how my body reacts to a lot of stress. And it taught me how to pay attention to those things. And as I was going through that experience, I kind of just, kept my Marines and peers and my friends and everything kind of involved in that. And it kind of helps them along the way with some things too, just to be open and honest about the things that I was experiencing and how my body may be reacting to stress, the things that I was doing to deal with stress at that time. And so it's been a learning experience. And, every time you go through something, it's a lesson. And so I think that's a takeaway during that stressful time, to just make sure I pay attention to what it is I'm supposed to be learning, because everything happens for a reason. But that's definitely hands down the most stressful thing I had to deal with in my career.
Thank you all so much for sharing those. And now I have plenty of questions, and I'm also trying to keep my eyes on the chat. Going back to Chaplain Peters, interestingly, I just preached at the baccalaureate service from the book of First Samuel about the story of Hannah dedicating Samuel to the temple and the difficulty of having to give up your child. Because, graduation seems to always fall around Mother's Day. And I shared with them a story of when I had to do a burial in Hawaii at a cemetery for an older guy. He was a father himself, but his mother was still alive, and she broke as if he was a newborn baby. So I get it, having to support family and friends. It's the nature of our job. One of the things that I hate is when I have to go to that funeral home and look in that casket to make sure the body is presentable to send back home to their families. So, and you mentioned taking it home with you. How do you work through that?
Well, that's an excellent setup, Chaplain Williams, and an excellent question. And I'll be quite honest with those that are watching. I am what I would consider a masculine male, like one of our counterparts. I'm an extreme extrovert. And as you said, I was a Marine. I don't back down from a fight either. However, there's this lie that has been taught to many of our men, and unfortunately, so many of our women, that we're not supposed to cry. And I don't believe that we're not supposed to cry. I believe that tears are the body's chosen response to start the healing process for wounds of the soul. Parents are not supposed to bury their children. You're not supposed to bury your spouse when it's a new marriage. Your peers are not supposed to, in their own lives. Those are all wounds to our souls. And the beginning process for that healing are the tears that our body wants to shed. So in all those situations, I cried with the families. I lead the commands out in tears. I speak to the commanding officers and the exos, and while I'm talking to them alone, I cry and I let them see it. I will cry with the mothers, cry with the fathers. I will be all things to all people, because it hurts me just as much as it hurts them, and I will not stand there stoic as if their wounds are not my wounds. And I found that has kept me sane. It's allowed my body to relieve the pressure and the stress that's associated with each one of those events. And it also knits me to the souls of those that I care for. I hope that answers the question without going into too much detail and eating up too much time.
No, absolutely. Right on point. I'm right there with you. Before I became a Navy chaplain, I served as a hospital chaplain, and I was always asking, like, are we allowed to cry with the family? Because I surely did like some of the stuff we deal with. And at that particular funeral I mentioned, I definitely boo-hooed, and so did the Marines. Marines have this stereotype of toughness, but when it comes to their brothers and sisters, they cry like it's blood family. That's why the Marines have my heart. But thank you so much for that, Chaplain Peters. So, Lieutenant Perkins, we could spend all day on you with deployment. That's a story in and of itself. But you brought up the COVID isolation, and I unfortunately did 2 back-to-back deployments during COVID, and it's so weird. It's like being fresh out of jail, because the way the world was when we started deployment was completely different from the way the world was when we got back, and this COVID thing get hit. And, it's like watching a zombie apocalypse movie on the ship, because all we're getting is the news. But then we get back on land, there's these stripes on the ground. You can't go past this line. There's arrows in the stores. Everyone's wearing a mask. It's just this completely new world. And we all needed an instruction of how to readjust to life. So as an extroverted personality, how did you make it through that COVID isolation? And Lord, I couldn't go to church. That hurt me. Please speak more about that.
You know what? To be honest with you, I think the shock of it all kind of forced me into a position of just first being aware, right? Like, how do I stay grounded, right? What do I depend on? What are my normal outlets? You know, it's easy to identify, okay, I can't do this, I can't do that, but what are the things that actually, what are the things that I can do that can keep me grounded, right? So church online became a thing, right? You gotta go, right? You have to go. You need that. It's something that, at least for me personally, that's been a part of my life since I was a child. So, you know, I can't take that connection away. I need that. I like working out in the gym. So I look at, you know, wholeness in a few different ways, right? So you have the spiritual aspect, but you also have the emotional, social aspect. You have the physical aspect, right? And you have to be intentional about nurturing all of those different aspects of yourself. And so you just kind of had to get creative. I can't see my family, right? But we can get on a Zoom call and have a discussion, right? And we can laugh and we can share different experiences from afar. I can't work out in the gym, right? But I can go for a run. And it's good. I get a little vitamin D, you know, I can listen to some music. I get some time to just kind of work through my thoughts. So I think that the awareness piece was first. And then, you know, dedicating some time to try to figure out different ways to kind of love on myself a little bit, right? So that I could be healthy and I could be whole. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Figuring out how to love on yourself. I'm sorry, I'm just taking notes and keeping quotes for myself. Love on yourself. Yeah. Again, it was like stepping out into a new world, and I'm trying to be okay with this online church, but even people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm actually a big introvert. And but I realize I do need community. I desperately need it, and I need a certain type of community. So not being able to be in church in person, that was hard on me. But you got to roll with it, and I'm glad things are loosening up. But yeah, it does force you to get creative in how you approach life. All right, Miss Farms. I just realized everybody's last name starts with a P. But anyways, Miss Farms. Oh, you went there. And I'm so glad you went there. And that's the purpose, is kind of like the essence of why I wanted to have this type of discussion. Because I read your bios, and what are bios? They're all the highlights of our careers. But the pain of being passed over. Speak on it.
Yeah, it was definitely tough to stomach because it came as a shock. So for anybody who's experienced it, you know, message comes out, everyone sees your name is not on it, and there's like the flood of phone calls and messages from like friends, past leadership, everyone. They're just kind of trying to talk to you and figure out like what's going on, like how can we fix this, and it's just kind of painful to see. And so you're trying to like deal with that, but at the same time still kind of be supportive and supportive of your friends and everyone who did get selected, because you don't want to be the person that's like salty. And so like still being supportive for everyone else and being there for their promotions and kind of like moving them along the way, and still kind of being stagnant in this spot, and trying to remain like a force at work. And so that was definitely a new experience. So that part was stressful. Just kind of dealing, I know I definitely had to seek, you know, go into some type of therapy to be able to talk through it, because I wasn't processing it well, and I could see how it was. I was kind of overly focused on the people who I felt like kind of put me in that position, and not too focused on what do I need to do to make sure I can like change this outcome. And so I kind of had to talk with someone to kind of talk through a better way to kind of put things into perspective that was happening at the time. Like, yes, I might want to be focused on like who wrote this fitness report and why I think it shouldn't have been this way. But sometimes like staying like upset about that, it won't get you anywhere. And so you kind of have to think of your follow-on steps I had to pay attention to my body and how it was reacting to stress. I learned, that I know when I'm stressful, I can see it in the changes in my eating habits when I'm not eating right. I noticed that I'm not interested in going to the gym and stuff like I usually am. I noticed that I started to get like stress induced, like alopecia. And like there were other things that was just kind of happening where it was like, okay, I need to listen to my body, see that something's going on, and kind of go get a little bit of help with this. And so learning that, and then also kind of being open with that. So other people who were kind of experiencing some of the same things, because there were other Marines who were in the same boat, and they kind of reached out and were like, how are you processing all this? Because we see your social media presence. You look like you still happy. You out here doing things with NNOA. You still putting on PME events. You still out here with your Marines. But this happens. Like, so how are you able to do that? And so just sharing like the things that works for me in that time, and just being able to be aware of, like I said, how my body reacts. And I know talking to someone, just being aware, and then of course continuing to go to church. Because I noticed when I stay, the more connected I am with my faith, the more that I'm able to breeze past like when I hit these bumps in the road. And I noticed that the more detached I am from that, it's like you lose your sense of purpose, and you're starting to focus on all the wrong things. And so really having that keeps me centered. And that was very key. Like I had to make sure like during that time, I got to be where I'm supposed to be so I can stay focused on my purpose and not get distracted, because everything happens for a reason. And it's becoming more and more clear even now as I'm continuing to push through this thing. Like, it doesn't matter if my journey doesn't look like everyone else's. Like, mine is the way it's supposed to be for a reason. I understand that reason, and I'm completely content with it. But it took a little minute to get there.
Thank you so much. And you said therapy. Like the title of this is, combating the stigma of mental health. It's okay to get help. And that is something I am working hard to dismantle. Um, like I said, you read the bios, you read the highlights of everyone's careers, but we've had some real stories in the middle of that. And that can be intimidating, just hearing the highlights. Well, you just seem so perfect. But the vast majority of us have had some serious struggles in this. And we're losing a lot of officers early in their careers because they don't have anyone they don't know how to make it through this. So you touched on therapy. I want to get into mentorship a little bit. Like, who have been your mentors? So you mentioned therapy. Who else has helped you to make it through? And we're going to go back around to Chaplain Peters.
Well, I want to highlight and affirm the statements from both Lieutenant Perkins and Captain and Fonz. Both of their challenges are real challenges that we all deal with and have dealt with at some point in time. And your question was, who are mentors? So I'm going to go there and hopefully have an opportunity to circle back to some of the things that were shared in common with both of my panelists, even as of recently. But mentors. I've been blessed to be mentored by the admirals of the like admirals of Admiral Chaplain Barry Black, Margaret Kibben, Admiral Halsey, and Admiral Walker. Even Marine Corps generals like Ronald Bailey. I've been blessed to have chaplain mentors, Chaplain Anderson and Chaplain Johnson, Chaplain Yolanda Gillen and Chaplain Griffin. Just all great giants in their own right who were willing to pour into, answer questions, guide, lead, pray for, and encourage me along my career, and so many more. I mean, it's just to just name those few is really it's almost like an offense, because there's so many, both enlisted officers, civilian and non-civilian alike. Whether it's spiritual mentors, because we need spiritual mentors, as Captain Farms was mentioning. Without our spiritual base nailed down, the other thing is throw us off center and will wipe us out. Social mentors, people who pour into your marriage and guide you along that way in your relationship so that you keep that balance. Parental mentors, if you're a parent. Everyone goes to professionals to get things taken care of, except when it comes to their own reality, right? You don't try to fix your own car. You take it to a person who fixes cars professionally. You don't build your own house unless you're you're a construction worker, you call a plumber, or you call an electrician, you call people who specialize in those things. Even in our own personal relationships, who we are as people. Counseling, absolutely. Get counseling, right? Spiritual counseling, financial counseling, marital counseling, relational counseling. Get it. Find the specialists who are gifted in those areas and who can pour into you and help you along the way. Get it. But those are some of my mentors to answer that question in a not so short way.
So what did you want to circle back to? This is your time.
Okay, well, what I wanted to say was Perkins mentioned being an extreme extrovert and being on lockdown in Corona. That was the first time that I ever realized what introverts had to deal with being around us extroverts. My wife's an introvert, and I'm a flaming extrovert, and I'm always around people, so my energy level is always through the roof, and I love that. But for the first time, having to be away from everybody, I actually woke up one day and was like, man, why I feel tired? Why the sky look gray when the sun is out? And my wife was like, that's how we introverts feel. We have to be around y'all all the time. Y'all suck the life out of us. I was like, oh, so this is how it feels to not be able to be around people? This is what it feels like to have the life sucked out of you? Oh, this is horrible. I'll never tease you introverts ever again. So Perkins, I'm feeling that all the way. And Farms, I just got passed over for 06. Results just came out, right? And the flood of people calling me, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I had to talk so many of my people off the fence. But you nailed it when you said your spiritual founding helps keep you straight. And as a chaplain, right, my spiritual founding is not my calling. That's my life, right? That's my life. So me and God was talking about this way before. God, if I get selected, great. If I don't, great. You didn't call me here for this, whatever. And so when it hit, because I was already rooted and grounded in my calling is to bless God, bless others, do my best no matter where I am. And even if I'm not, I did not have the sting that everybody else thought I was going to have. And they couldn't believe that I was okay. And I wasn't crying at all. There was no soul wound for this because, okay, what? If I get promoted next time, great. If I don't, great. But you nailed it. That spiritual founding is key to staying centered, to staying grounded, and to realize your intrinsic value no matter what's going on around you. So thank you both for sharing what you shared.
All right, I felt a sermon coming on. I know Chaplain Peters can go when he wants to. I felt a word coming on. Just a little note on Captain Judge. He is in a low signal area, so he may and or may not, but he has a wonderful story to tell that he shares with all of the new recruits at Coast Guard Training Command that come in. And so if we can't get him on this one, we'll definitely get him on a future one. But, he needs to be with his family anyway, so we completely understand. Staying with the mentoring question, or if you want to even respond to what Chaplain Peters says or any other thoughts you may have, we're going to go back to Ms. Perkins.
Listening to Chaplain Peters, he said it so well. I've accumulated in just my short career so many mentors in so many different ways, of life. I look back to my time in high school where I met Captain McAdams, right? And I met, U.S. Navy retired Commander Johnson, who's also a pastor and, the first Black mayor of Fayetteville, Georgia, right? And I'm like, at the time, I didn't really understand the importance of a mentor. But it was people like Captain McAdams and Commander Johnson that stayed with me, right? Continued to advise me even when that was not something that I was asking for. That made me realize the importance of kind of collecting people as you go along. And I really believe that I have just been, when I tell you guys, like, God placed me exactly where I was supposed to be at every duty station. I never felt like, the day one I showed up to USS George H.W. Bush, my DCA, LDO type guy, I felt like he was my uncle, right? Mentor to this day. I report to CINMOC down at Stennis Space Center, Admiral Okun, my operations officer, Captain Stoughton. I mean, professional mentors, leading and guiding me, here's what's next. This is what you need to do. You need to get attached to this. You need this, all of these things. And so for me, I've just been lucky enough to kind of end up being planted where I was supposed to be, right? And just collecting those folks as I go along. So.
You always finish when I'm in the middle of writing something down. You said planted where I'm supposed to be. Supposed to be. Miss Farms, what say you?
So when it comes to mentors, again, like everyone else said, I've had a lot of people who have taken the time to, try to pour into me and, guide me along the way. If I tried to name everybody, we would be here all day. But I do know, at least when it comes to, because I was listening to like Lieutenant Perkins talk about like how, arriving in places and feeling like welcomed and having people there pouring in. I know that that it's almost the opposite from my experience. I do feel like it's been challenging in the Marine Corps. My entire time in the Marine Corps has been very challenging to kind of go in places, work very hard, not really be received the way that you intended. And having to like reach out from afar to kind of find people to be able to pour into and develop. And I know NNOA helps me with that tremendously, even back when I was second and first lieutenant in Okinawa, and just kind of being in an area where I just felt like, everything around me was moving. Everyone else is being poured into. There's people that are going out and doing things and they're getting all this support. And I'm just like this lieutenant that no one has anything in common with. And everyone's kind of like scared to talk to because of that. And so it's like, I never had the problem from my level down. It was always my level up. And so having, when I was introduced to NNOA and being able to kind of find leadership through that organization, and I was able to find a lot of people to kind of talk to me about some things, attend PMEs through that and learn the things that I felt I needed to know to be effective. And so definitely grateful to the organization for that.
You are so Marine Corps. We give you a time limit, you're going to stick to it, and that's it. You'll cut yourself off mid-sentence. Also with you, Captain Farms, I read a lot of your articles. You even made the infamous Lipstick Alley, telling on myself about hair. So one, I'm indebted to you because I'm natural. And this was illegal in the Navy until 2019, end of 2018. So because of the push of women like you, I can wear my hair in locks now, finally, because ship life ain't it. It'll do some damage. So I thank you for your voice. And the other way, she's done some extensive writing out there. So Google her name and her articles will come up. Very accomplished. So right now we are in the final 5 minutes of our conversation. So I just want to give each of you an opportunity to go around and just give us some concluding words, something to take with us. You know what, Chaplain Peters, you're going to go last because you're the chaplain. And so since we just had Captain Farm speak, I'm going to throw it at my DeKalb County sister girl, Lieutenant Perkins. Sorry.
No worries. As I thought about my time, I talked a lot about like the things that I went through during the pandemic and, everything related to that. I want to leave everyone with a book. And let me just say this, I am not a big reader. This is a short book, has big words and illustrations. It's an adult book, I promise. But it focuses a lot on your environment. And that was the thing about the pandemic. We couldn't change our environment. So we had to find a way to not allow our environment to change us. And again, love on yourself, even when your environment isn't conducive to that. And so the book that I would recommend to everyone is called The Coffee Bean. And it's all about how, not allowing your environment to soften you, not allowing your environment to harden you, but you being the coffee bean and allowing you to change your environment. So That's all I have. This has been wonderful, and I really enjoyed hearing from Captain Farms and Chaplain Peters. And thank you, Chaplain Williams and Captain McAdams, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. You ready, Miss Farms?
I am, ma'am. So I think the final words I will just say, because I know, and especially right now, because I know there was an incident that happened recently in the Marine Corps. There's a Marine that a lot of Marines that I know in the comm community knew, a staff NCO that ended up taking his life, and there's a lot of Marines who are being affected by that right now. And one thing I just kind of want to put out there is that when it comes to us in this military service, depending on how your career pans out, like, you have to know and understand, like, being in the military is not the end all be all. Like, yes, this is what you're doing right now, but it's not what defines you, and it's not what is, like, this is not your life's purpose. What you're here for is so much more than just wearing this uniform and what your leadership thinks of you and all these things. And I know that it's hard to think that when you're in the moment, because especially if you feel like you're being treated unfairly and you feel like your leadership is not, they don't value you and they don't value the work that you do, and you think it's just a point to where you don't matter. Like, you got to understand, and you got to talk to people and figure out what it is that you need to do to keep yourself grounded, and know that this, like, what you're doing here in the military is not the end all be all. We're in an organization. The organization has leadership that is flawed. So things are going to happen. Things are going to be unfair. And you got to be able to kind of roll with those punches and understand sometimes it's outside of you and you can't control that. So focus on what you can control. Understand that, like, you serve a purpose here, and reach out to who you need to figure out, what that purpose is, and to kind of stay around. Because the second and third order effects of letting stress take you over the edge is just compounding. And I know it's a lot of people that's dealing with that right now. So just keeping everybody uplifted in prayer, and know that the military is not the end all be all.
I know that's right. All right, Chaplain Peters, we need a word. Give us a word. No
All
pressure.
right. And no pressure in the few moments that we have left. I want to thank my colleagues for sharing, for being candid and transparent. We want to thank Captain McAdams for inviting us all here. And we want to put a plug in for the NNOA convention, the symposium that's coming up. I believe it's the 31st of July through August 3rd. Make sure you are there. Hopefully we will all be there, where we can continue to mentor, support, love on, and pray for one another, to sponsor and encourage each other, and where you can pour into others and be poured into yourself. With the last couple of seconds I have, I want to add this from the chaplain's perspective. You are not lucky. You are loved. Every last one of you is loved. And as Captain Farm said, you have a purpose far greater than the military could ever accomplish. Your chaplains are here because we love you, and we're extension of that love that comes from a God who made you, and you are unlike anyone else, and you have a purpose. Chaplains are here so that if you have any issues, any soul wounds, any concerns, any questions, anything you need to talk about, even things that have nothing to do with spirituality, we are here for you to have a conduit of 100% confidentiality so you can speak concerning whatever it is that bothers you without any fear of repercussion, ridicule, or impacting your career. Please contact your Navy chaplain. Please contact Chaplain Williams or anyone else in NNOA if you need to have access to a chaplain. You don't know who your chaplain is. 100% confidentiality means no matter what it is you talk to them about concerning your mental condition, your emotional condition, your spiritual condition, your professional condition, no matter what it is you share, it can be repeated to anyone else without your permission. Nothing that you share with your chaplain can be repeated anywhere else without your permission. Please do not go this alone. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're faced with, whatever you're struggling with, you've got a chaplain somewhere within walking distance or a phone call who will gladly support you and walk with you through your period of difficulty. With that, we thank you for giving us your time and joining us today. We thank you for watching. God bless you. May you have the success and impact that you desire in the military and in your personal life. And we look forward to seeing you at the NNOA Symposium. This is Chaplain Peters. God bless you all.
Thank you all.